guys? It's myself, Nasi Pizwani. I'm back again with another episode of Sludge Underground, and I've got Zem with me. She's a singer-songwriter from Johannesburg. She's also a DJ and producer. Zem, it's really awesome having you on the show. Super excited for this episode. As much as I said that you're a singer-songwriter, but you're also a DJ as well. In fact, you got an entire diploma in that. So I really just want to know, how that sort of, started. What made you be like, hey, I want to be a DJ, later on or something, or made you want to study, becoming a DJ?
Well, I dropped out of school like after grade 11. And so then at the time I was doing guitar, like electric guitar. And then into the new year, my mom was like, okay, so what are you going to do? And I also wasn't sure what I was going to do. At the time, I was only doing guitar. And so my mom started checking around, and funnily enough, she got into it before I did. And she was like, what do you think about DJing? And I was like, never really thought about it, but it made a lot of sense. Like, I was always into music, and like a friend of mine said I'd be like a really good DJ. So she was checking out for places I could go, like a parental worries.
Yeah.
So we found a place called DJ Mix Club, like studying sort of to become a DJ. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. That's very beautiful, the fact that your mom was very much involved in that as well. It's a really dope process. And I mean, has your mom always been there to sort of support your sort of music dreams?
Yeah, I mean, like from the time I was born, she felt like this was something I was going to do. And I mean, my dad's a musician as well. And on my 10th birthday, my dad bought me a guitar, my dad and my mom. So they always kind of like facilitated that journey. And then I always felt like during school, like, I don't know, I felt like I had to have like a plan. So like I always thought I was going to have like sort of a secular, serious job, and then I do music on the side. But like now I realize that like, I don't know, I don't feel like those two can really go together. The creative process can be so demanding sometimes. So I don't feel like I could do those two.
It's really interesting, Zam, that you mentioned that, and that, having sort of like a professional sort of working career together with, the music, don't really go together. I'm just looking at it sort of like, in South Africa as a whole, and how, music isn't really the most sustainable sort of, career in a way. So how do you sort of maneuver around that? If music would be your sole sort of, purpose and career, then how do you sort of make ends meet in a way?
To be honest, I'm going off faith. Like after I dropped out, I did have like a dip, and I was kind of like stressed. But for some weird reason, like I always knew I was never going to finish matric. Like since grade 2, I don't know, I just had a feeling within me. And like in the beginning of grade 11, my friend came up to me and she was like speaking about Revelations. I don't know if you know about the book of Revelations in the Bible. And she was like, she had a dream about me and that I wasn't going to finish the year. And I was like, yo, don't say that. And like just the way everything happened, it was like, can I say destiny? So I've been going off faith, to be honest. And I'm still going off faith for things to come through. And so it's just been a journey.
The fact that you didn't complete your matric, but you're still able to have this career path in terms of like making music and stuff, it sort of shows that you don't really, in life you don't really need a matric, to be honest. I mean, there's so many like millionaires, people who are just killing it right now who didn't even finish school. And I think that I think our educational system is flawed in a way as well, because a lot of the stuff that we learn at school, we barely apply in like real life. I'm looking back at like LO, fine, PE and stuff, cool, physical activity, physical education and all that. But I mean, I want to know how to like change a car tire. You had to do that. You only learn how to change a car tire when it actually happens to you, and you have to sort of improvise or in real life. So I totally get it.
I really don't feel like it prepares us for the world. Like most of the stuff that I took away from school were sort of like the interpersonal relationships and the complications that came with that. That's the life stuff that I picked up and that I learned. And I'd say the only thing I really learned from Allo that struck me was accountability. Teacher taught something on accountability once, and that really stuck with me. And I always say that's like, I feel like out of the educational system, the only really valuable thing, or one of the only valuable things I took away, besides being able to read and write.
There's a certain school that you actually went to, a music school. So I'd like you to just tell us a bit more about that there, and what sort of role is sort of played in you becoming a musician and someone that can actually play a guitar.
So my mom actually, she was also into music, and she was taught by this professor, Strainia Saidin, and she learned piano like back when she was younger. And so again, it was something brought about by my mom searching for me again. Like I've been taught by two different guitar teachers, and that was like, I don't know, my first teacher was more like rock, sort of like learning the classics. You learn how to play other people's music and technique. And then the music school was more like classical training and learning how to read music and notes and stuff like that. So yeah, again, something brought about and inspired by my mom and also her own experience. And it was during COVID that it hit, I think. Yeah, so I was learning at home, doing online Skype lessons. So it was different, but really taught me a lot.
So were you doing like grades there, like with obviously the musical training and stuff, or was it just vibes?
There were grades, but I didn't get up to like the last grade. I just kind of went through my first guitar book and then I didn't continue with that. So it's kind of like, I don't know, my whole musical journey's kind of been like that. Like I feel like God leads me somewhere for a certain period of time and then out of it and then into something else and then out of that. So it was like school, the same way. I never completed school. I don't know if you catch what I'm saying.
I definitely catch that. Does the studying not take away, from the passion? Because I mean, once it sort of becomes like structured and formalized, and there is this driven sort of structure where you have to follow a certain thing and tests and grades. Do you not reckon that sort of takes away from it? Would that not be part of the reason as to why you never maybe completed it?
It can. I mean, like, I hated school. I hated the pressure of school and just the pressure to feel like I need to keep up with something and I need to be really good. Like you need to be a master at math. And like, I was talking to my mom this morning or yesterday about like the guitar community. And there's definitely a culture within the guitar community that like puts emphasis and importance on technique and your ability, and they have like all these images and ideas of who the greats were in guitar. And you feel like you need to live up to that. And when I was like 17 with my first guitar teacher, I really felt like those were the standards I had to live up to, like the greats, like AC/DC, to, like all of that. And I felt like I needed to keep up with it. And even I guess when I studied a bit at Shine, I felt like, I don't know, it was really organic and I never felt really any pressure from the professor. He was really easygoing, but I guess pressure from within myself to be somebody like great. I don't know if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I completely get what you mean, Zem. So with you, I mean, having, not completed that, but you're still a phenomenal, guitarist and a musician. So will you ever sort of sometime down the line, go back to complete, your grades or even matric at all?
No, not matric. I have actually nightmares of going back to matric often. Seriously, I have nightmares of being forced to like, I'm always being thrown into the period just before the exams. And I know that I dropped out. So it's like I haven't learned for the year. And I just have this reoccurring nightmare of being sent back to matric to complete it. And it's like, no. In terms of like music, you can never stop learning. So definitely new things, even old things, if that was, God's will for me, I wouldn't mind going back and learning new things and expounding upon what I've learned, but definitely not school.
Yeah, so would you say that, spirituality and religion has played a major part, when it comes to not only sort of, you leaving school, obviously, but also within the music, the music that you make and everything that you do as an artist, does that play a very big role as well?
Yeah, well, first of all, I really don't consider myself to be a religious person or to be in a religion. To me, it's not about being religious and even sort of spiritualism and spirituality. It's about having a relationship with God. So that's what it's like for me. And every time I make a song, I ask God to help. He created everything around us. So I ask him to help me with the creation process. And I definitely feel like that's helped, like going back to what you were speaking about, that how stifling sometimes the education or even just learning music can be. Sometimes you have and you experience limitations. I feel like my growth has been really organic thanks to God, and like even just accelerated in a sense, without having the full training that we are taught that we need in order to get somewhere.
I've seen a couple of posts with you wearing like an AC/DC or a Metallica shirt, or whatever the case may be. Are you a big sort of metal or rock fan?
I don't know. Like when I was 17, I went through an old classical rock phase. I can't say I'm really there. Sometimes now and then I visit the songs, but like at that time I was heavily influenced by the greats, inverted commas. Now I kind of just I listen to whatever I feel like listening to, and you always find new music and old and new. So it's definitely evolved, I guess, from that time.
There are various influences, when it comes to the things that you do. I mean, there's the guitar, there's the DJing, there's obviously the singing, and obviously the producing. There's just so much that's sort of going on. So with you, do you find that, with each thing that you do, would you say that maybe the DJing sort of lends a hand towards the singing? Do all these things sort of work in unison when it comes to maybe songwriting or, creating the music that you make? Do you find that maybe you take some elements of being a DJ with some elements of, the classical training when it comes to the guitar and all that there?
Yeah, I mean, DJing in the beginning for me was the start. Like before, I was kind of like always, I don't know, how can you say, hiding or even mollycoddling my talent, inverted commas. I don't know, So I was really shy. Even now, I don't really like to sing in front of people. Like still get a bit shy. And so it was something I kept inside of me for a really long time. And like my mom always used to say, she's going to be a singer-songwriter one day. And I used to be like, bro, you crazy. Where are you getting this from? I don't see this within myself, But like I went through many different phases, like poetry and stuff like that. So DJing was sort of a gateway for me to express myself musically. And I love technology as well. So it's a fusion between the two. And then like during my DJing and even just a bit afterwards when I graduated, then I studied production for a short while at the same institution before I left again. And they all fuse together in some way or another. But it's a journey. Like I wasn't sure how I was going to merge the classical with the electronic, like the digital and the analog. I wasn't always sure how I was going to merge that. And so it was only recently with my last two songs, like La Nuit and Breathe, that I merged the acoustic, the analog with the digital. So that was an achievement for me. And it was interesting to see what side it brought out in me that was different from like when I just produce solely digitally.
You haven't really posted any, of the DJing stuff in a while. So would it be safe to assume that you've maybe, put the DJing thing aside and maybe just focused more on, the singer-songwriter part of Zem, or is the DJing still a thing? It's just that you're not really posting about it.
I feel like, I don't know, it's been really confusing for me myself. I feel like I'm stuck between like, I really do still have a passion for DJing like inside me. And then at the same time, it's just like everything I feel like is led. And so I also feel like there's a time for everything. And I feel like at the time DJing had a thing and it was a way for me to introduce myself to people and on my social media as like, I'm into music. Before my social media used to be just imagery and like it was just something people that you personally knew about. But I don't know, I really do have a passion for DJing harboring deep inside of me. So I don't know really about DJing. It's a bit of a confusing one for me. I don't actively seek out gigs either, and it's a competitive market. I feel like when I produce and I do my own thing, I'm not competing with anybody but myself and like my past versions. And like, whereas I feel like DJing is really competitive and I don't know.
It's okay. It's okay not to know and to figure things out, as you move. When you say that you're very shy, like you wouldn't sing in front of a crowd. I mean, is that you saying that we will never see a Zem live show?
That's my vision. Like some of my wildest dreams, they involve live performance, and I just love it. Like DJing live was one of my first, like my debut DJ gig was one of the most exhilarating thrills I've ever felt in my life. And I can only imagine what it's like when I'm now singing, which is something that's very personal and like vulnerable. I guess that's also part of my shyness is like just, I wouldn't say issues, more like reservations about being vulnerable in front of people. And it's just like sharing a personal side of yourself. I definitely want to do live shows. That's the goal. That's the ultimate vision.
I would really love to see like a live version of Free to Be Me, because it was one of the first tracks, that I heard by you. And another thing that stuck out to me was that I instantly drew comparisons to another band that, I listen to, which doesn't really have, as much mainstream sort of success here in South Africa, but more overseas. I don't know if you've heard of a band called Lola Wolf.
With Zoe Kravitz.
Yes, there was this comparisons, like, because I used to listen to them heavy, so then I caught some of those elements within your music, whether it be intentional or unintentional. So for me, I really related to that kind of sound, which sort of makes me want to ask about your inspirations as well. Like, when you get into the whole songwriting and creative process, is there anyone you sort of draw inspiration from?
Well, my main inspiration is God. I think also as being a, how can you say, like an artist, I don't want to copy what's out there. There's nothing new under the sun, so you can't say that like really what you create is the most newest thing ever. But I don't know, there's a struggle between like hearing what's inside of you, like melodies and stuff, and then also like then taking it to production, and then like I don't know, like often I hear something inside of myself and then it becomes something else, and then I question myself because I had a vision that like the Lord showed me that those visions that I'm also trying to follow is based on the music I have heard out there. So sometimes, I don't know, it's a balance between sticking to the brief inside of yourself and then also allowing yourself to let go of certain things because it is based on the music that you've heard out there. So inspiration, I do get inspired by like bands and stuff, but I don't know, not to copy, sort of like they inspire you to be your own version of you.
Just focusing on your music now, which is what we're here for. Let me just say, I discovered you on SoundCloud. That is where, and then even if I click, even the links that you share on your social media, it takes someone straight to SoundCloud. So what is the exact reason as to why Zem, has decided to sort of stick, to SoundCloud and not maybe, promote or push forth, the other platforms that these artists are generally pushing, like your Apple or your Spotify? Why is SoundCloud sort of the centerpiece of it all?
It's not that I don't want to or like that I'm avoiding pushing on other platforms. That's the goal. It's just that I'm not there yet, I guess. Everything I do is sort of on my own, and my mom, she picked up a lot of skills and she did a lot of different things in her life, like managing. She did music, so she's also really helped in that sense. So it's kind of like a 2-man or 3-man band, sort of, if you include God. But like, I'm not saying artists need a label to help them push. I know that they do it on their own and they hustle. It's just sort of like SoundCloud was the start for me, and it's kind of like something I've continued with and sort of venture out on YouTube every now and then. The goal is to get it everywhere, but like, yeah, I don't know. I guess it's just where I'm at right now.
Yeah, and it would be really nice to see, the growth. I mean, the day that you decide, hey, I'm gonna try Spotify or I'm gonna try something else, it would really be dope to see that. Obviously, well, in 2021, you gave us, quite a few tracks, namely Blush, Deadlock, Breathe, La Nuit. And my one of my favorites, again, would be Breathe. Interesting lines in there, the obvious: what can I do to save you from yourself? What can I do to take away the pain you feel inside? I'd like for you to expand a bit on that.
uh okay, I'm gonna have to backtrack. So like a couple of years ago, like 2 years ago, someone I knew committed suicide. And I can't really say we were so close. I mean, compared to some of the other people that I knew at the time, I know that they spent all of their time with him. And so I don't know, it really hit me hard. Like, and even just the next year on his anniversary death, like really hit me hard. I don't really know why, but I felt it. And just also, COVID, so many people committed suicide. And even at the time I was getting into K-pop, and then I realized there's like sort of, can you say, a suicide epidemic almost amongst those young, like sort of idols or stars as well. And then just experiencing it in my own family and my personal life, like people who just didn't feel like life is worth living anymore. And it just stresses you out, when somebody you love doesn't really feel like life is worth living anymore. And so those lines came from the feelings that were invoked by that kind of a situation being presented to you and I guess loved ones. So the what can I do? It's like, well, what can I do?
It's very deep. Do you still listen to K-pop? Just on that point.
I go through phases. Like I definitely had a phase, a giant phase, and then I got very like heavy into Korean hip hop, and so I go through the phases and stages. Right now, I'm really like into Afrobeats, like all I'm listening to. So I have my moments, you know. Maybe I'll circle around back to it.
There's a gentleman by the name of Reuben that we've had on the show. I highly suggest you check him out. I'm gonna send you his links and stuff, but he's from Korea, and he's a producer, and he basically like spoke to us a lot about Korean culture and Korean hip hop. I digress though, so I'm gonna send you all that like behind the scenes and all that, so you can check it out. But while we still on Breathe, the reason why I said adding that context now, some other things make sense is because halfway through the song, it's you switch it up. It's got this dark, eerie tone, on the synth, and with what you're saying and how you're saying it, breathe for me, take my pains away. It turns into like this very dark sort of sound. So would you say you were sort of channeling everything you were sort of feeling at that time as a result of the suicide then?
Actually, like the first part of the song, like I wrote those lyrics in 2019 or 2020, maybe early 2020. So I wrote the beginning of Breathe, like the lighter part, long time ago. And it is just like I just never knew when I was going to use it, and I intended for like it to be played with the melody from the acoustic guitar. Like I told you, at the time I just wasn't really ready to merge the digital and the analog. So it's something that I got to this year. So I was able to do that song. And then the second part, Breathe, was actually inspired by more recent events. Like I was having a panic attack, sort of like the other night, and somebody was just like, breathe. And like I just never really believed in that stuff. I found it like really awkward, you know. So I was like trying it out and it really worked. And so while I was playing on the guitar, those lyrics just came up, and yeah.
Like another thing that I've noticed as well is obviously with the switch up, we said we'd call it. You also did something similar. You did something similar in Deadlock as well, where sort of there was like a switch in style, in there. So what was behind that? Was it more or less the same situation with Breathe, where you had something for it and then you sort of implemented it later on, or what was the vibe there with Deadlock?
Sometimes when I produce, I can get carried away because, like, I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of music inside of me, and like I just also have so many like recordings and stuff of stuff that I haven't done. So sometimes when I start with a project, it's easy for me to get carried away into a melody or something else. And sometimes I find myself sitting with like three different songs in one track, and it's like, okay, how am I going to merge this? And it's Deadlock. It was the same. Like I did one thing over here, and then I did another thing over there, and it's like, how am I going to merge this? And so sometimes that's why these sort of switch ups occur. It's not like I'm like, yeah, I'm going to start light and go into the dark to depict the sorrow in my soul. It's just more like it happens, you know?
Yeah. It's sort of like a natural process. Not really a lot of thought goes. Yeah, I know. That's the best way to sort of maneuver around making music and stuff. It's sort of something not really similar, but okay, oh well, similar in La Nuit as well, where you just start off with the guitar. It's literally just guitar right in the beginning, all the way, I think, for about a minute and a few seconds in, and then obviously you jump in with the lyrics. I really love what you did there, but considering that La Nuit is obviously at the time of recording, the latest track that you've dropped. What would you say? Obviously La Nuit translates into the night in French. So why did you make a choice to sort of name it that and not just say the night, but give it that sort of French twist to it?
Well, at the time, like, I don't know, it was same with like another song, Chachara. The word just popped up in my mind, and I'm like, yo, what is this word? And so I looked it up and I was like, okay. And then I'm like, this is going to be a song title. It's just something that happens inside of you. And somehow it just happens to be applicable. I don't know, So that was La Nuit. The lyrics for La Nuit also just sort of freestyled over guitar. So it doesn't really come from deep, deep, deep place. It's kind of like lead. It's just like a flow.
So what sort of inspired you then? Obviously, we know, that it was you were just going with the flow of the guitar and stuff. Is there anything else that you would say, sort of that you factored in when it comes to Lani?
Maybe a bit of love, like the idea of love, meeting someone down by the riverbed. Also, a dream I had actually. I had a dream of a child crying by a river like a couple of months ago, and that was going to be other lyrics or something. So the lyrics of Lani, I see what I saw in the dream as well. So it's a bit of couple of things that I can't explain and feel, can feel.
It's very beautiful. I mean, pretty much, when it comes to the music, there's a lot more music that you do have on SoundCloud. I was just picking, the ones that, stuck out to me. You also mentioned Chacharach, and that also purely the name alone, I saw that I was like, okay, I gotta listen to this. But the main thing, or the main takeaway is that you have a really beautiful catalog, and it's a journey of growth as well, because if you had to compare some of your earlier stuff to Lani and the newer stuff as well, you can just hear that there's been a lot of growth. Like I noticed as well, as you also mentioned in the beginning, that with the last two songs and with a couple of your later in the songs that you released later, with that sort of the synth, it's got that synth in there that you fused together with the guitar, which goes hand in hand with what you were saying, and that it's in the beginning you sort of struggled fusing analog and digital and stuff, and it's really great to find that you blossomed into being able to pull that off, because that synth really comes through, and it works really well. Like you really put it together quite nicely. Are you the one that sort of having studied production as well, do you arrange and put everything together, or do you have to go to a studio and put it all together?
No, everything's kind of like done on my own. Yeah, like with Made for Me, for example, there was something that just wasn't sitting with the song. So I took it to my mom, and my mom was really good at arrangement in her own music. So she helped me arrange things and just put it in sort of like just arrange really. In production, he taught to produce one way. And for a long time, I produced a lot of songs that never really amounted to much. And it's only when I started doing things my way that I felt
Mm.
like, okay, I'm getting somewhere. Because like I was taught to do drums first, then to add the percussion, then to do this, then to do that. And sometimes I just don't always feel like that. And then having that voice in the back of my mind kind of sometimes put a stress on me, because I felt like I have to do things this way. And if I don't, then it's not going to be great or good, you know?
I really appreciate the fact that you don't want to get comfortable, and sort of do things the way that you've been told to do them. Music is very much about the feels and the vibes, so you can hear that in your music as well, and that it's not like you sat down and you followed the rules. And I feel like things just they sort of transcend a lot better, and the energies are a lot better as well when it's done in that kind of way. We've spoken about your music, you've touched on your family, you've touched on God and your beliefs, and I feel like in this short period of time I've learned quite a bit about you, Zem, and I appreciate the time that we've spent. I don't want to keep you too long, so I just want to find out about 2022. What are the plans? Can we maybe expect a music video or two? Can we expect anything drastic? Like, let us in on that.
I don't really have any plans right now, kind of just going with the flow. But I can only imagine it can only get better and like deeper from this point on, And yeah, just more expression, learning how to break free on a deeper level. It's a journey, and like through my music and my songs, I learn more about myself and about things around me. Yeah.
Yeah, before I let you go, two more points. Zem is your name, right? Like it's on your ID and everything. What does it mean?
Well, Zemi is on my birth certificate. When my mom was pregnant with me, my dad was in Durban, and he's Congolese. So in his language, Zemi means pregnancy. So he
Oh,
used to call my
nice.
mom and ask, how's the Zemi? So when I came out, they were like, Zem. And my dad's like, no, it can't be Zemi, because when my people hear, they're going to laugh at her. And apparently at Home Affairs, when we went to get like my ID and everything, I was much older than a baby, and I was like fighting for the I to be added. So they added the I on the certificate. So some people call me Zemi. Usually people from like my past and some people now that I meet, but it's Zem. Zem doesn't really have any meaning to it.
Are you in touch with your Congolese side at all? Like, have you ever been to Congo?
Nah, I've never been. When I was growing up, I spent a lot of time with my dad, but I can't really say that he influenced me culturally. However, I did come across a couple of things, you know, and just certain understandings also just from like places I've lived, like when I was living in the hood, it was a melting pot of people from all kinds of countries. So I suppose I learned more there about like African cultures and just even South African cultures than from my dad, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's really beautiful, Zem. And one last point then, in that your mom has played a really big role in your music career. So if your mom is listening to this, is there anything that you'd like to just say to her?
Oh, yeah, I just like to say thank you. She's always believed in me, you know. Thank you for always believing in me and for being such a wise woman of God and such a strong support system. And yeah, I really value all her input, and it's definitely not going to go unnoticed or unrewarded. So thank you.
That is really awesome, Zem. I can't thank you enough for joining me, for this chat. Let the people know where they can sort of get in touch with you and where they can find your music and your social media handles real quick.
Okay, so on Twitter, it's YMez 17. Instagram, MEZVN, that's MEZVN. Facebook, ZemVN, ZEMVN. And on SoundCloud, I'm Zem, in all caps, ZEM.
All right, great. And for anyone listening to this, obviously we are at Sludge Underground on every single platform except Twitter. We are at Sludge031. And if you want to listen to the podcast, it's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, and wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, we are Sludge Underground Podcast on there. Zem, I don't want it to be my choice when it comes to the song we play out with. I was going to say Breathe because it's my favorite, but also at the same time, Lani is your latest one. I don't know. Which one do you reckon we play out with, or which one is your favorite?
You can play Breathe. Yeah, you can play Breathe. I don't know about faves right now, but you can end with Breathe.
All right, sick. So thank you guys to anyone who's been listening to this episode. We're going to close out now with Breathe by Zem. Until next time, it's bye for now.
What can I do to take